The unthinkable just happened. Keir Starmer didn't get attacked by the British media. He didn't get exposed by the opposition. He got grilled by Donald Trump on the world stage. And the numbers don't lie. Because while Starmer has been telling Britain that energy prices are coming down, Trump just stood up at the World Economic Forum in Davos and calmly blew that entire story apart. No shouting, no insults, just brutal facts. And once you hear them, you'll understand why Starmer is suddenly silent. Trump looked straight at Europe and straight through the UK's excuses and said something that should have sent shockwaves through Westminster.
The United Kingdom produces just 1/3 of the total energy from all sources that it did in 1999. Think of that, 1/3. And they're sitting on top of the North Sea, one of the greatest reserves anywhere in the world, but they don't use it. And that's one reason why their energy has reached catastrophically low levels with equally high prices. High prices, very low levels. Think of that, 1/3. And you're sitting on top of the North Sea, and they like to say, well, you know, that's depleted. It's not depleted. It's got 500 years. They haven't even found the oil. The North Sea is incredible. They don't let anybody drill. Environmentally, they don't let them drill. They make it impossible for the oil companies to go. They take 92% of the revenues. So the oil companies say, we can't do it. They came to see me. Is there anything you can do? I want Europe to do great. I want UK to do great. They're sitting on one of the greatest energy sources in the world, and they don't use it.
You're supposed to make money with energy, not lose money. Then he dropped the bomb. The United Kingdom now produces just 1/3 of the total energy it generated in 1999. 1/3, let that sink in. A country sitting on top of the North Sea, one of the greatest energy reserves on Earth, now barely produces enough power to stand on its own feet. And Trump didn't stop there. He pointed out that electricity prices in the UK have surged by 139%. Yet Starmer's big promise, a £150 reduction, after prices exploded. That's not leadership, that's spin. Trump called it out without even mentioning Starmer's name, which somehow made it worse, because this wasn't political theatre. This was a forensic teardown. Trump explained why companies won't drill in the North Sea. The UK government takes 92% of the revenue, 92%. So energy firms walk away, production collapses, prices soar, and British families pay the bill. Then came the line that should haunt every speech Starmer makes about green growth. The more windmills a country has, the more money it loses. Trump pointed out that China manufactures almost all the world's wind turbines, but barely uses them itself. China burns coal, China drills oil and gas. China gets rich selling green tech to the West, and Britain buys it, installs it, pays for it. At this point, the picture becomes impossible to ignore. Trump is describing exactly what Starmer refuses to admit. Lower growth, higher prices, weaker energy security, declining living standards, all while sitting on massive natural resources that go unused. This wasn't just a speech, it was a verdict. By now, something should be obvious. Donald Trump wasn't just talking about electricity bills. He was talking about power. Who has it, who's losing it, and who's sleepwalking into weakness. Because once Trump finished dismantling Britain's energy policy, he widened the lens. And this is where it becomes deeply uncomfortable for Keir Starmer. Trump made it clear that energy isn't an environmental issue. It's not a moral issue. It's not even a political one. It's a national security issue. A country that can't power itself, can't defend itself. A country that relies on imports can be pressured, blackmailed, or cut off. And Trump didn't need to say Starmer's name. Everyone knew exactly who he was talking about. He pointed to Europe's shrinking industrial base, factories closing, steel production collapsing, manufacturing fleeing overseas. Then he delivered the line that explains everything happening right now. We want strong allies, not seriously weakened ones. That wasn't a compliment. That was a warning. Trump explained that Europe's self-inflicted energy crisis has led to lower economic growth, lower standards of living, lower birth rates, mass migration, smaller, weaker militaries. In other words, dependence. And here's the part the British establishment doesn't want discussed. Trump openly said the United States is done subsidizing weakness, done funding security for countries that deliberately cripple their own economies, done carrying allies who won't use their own resources but still expect protection. That's why Trump's speech suddenly shifted to Greenland. At first, it sounded random. It wasn't. Greenland is about control of the Atlantic, control of shipping lanes, control of energy routes, control of the Arctic, where future power will be decided. Trump made it crystal clear. America is locking down its sphere of influence. And Europe, including the UK, is being told, quietly but firmly, get your house in order or step aside. Now ask yourself this. How does Keir Starmer respond to that? He can't attack Trump. Britain needs the US. He can't dispute the numbers. They're public. He can't promise change. His entire platform is built on the same policies Trump just destroyed. So instead, there's silence, deflection, talking points about £150 savings and long-term transitions. But Trump is already playing 3 moves ahead. In part 3, Trump goes even further, laying out why America is pulling jobs, factories, and capital out of countries like Britain, and why this shift could permanently downgrade the UK's global standing. And once you see that, you'll understand why Starmer looks rattled, and why this moment may already be too late to fix. By the end of Trump's speech, one thing was unmistakable. This wasn't rhetoric. This wasn't nostalgia. This was a blueprint. Trump laid out exactly why jobs, factories, and investment are leaving countries like the UK, and why they're flooding into the United States instead. And it boils down to one brutal contrast. America is deregulating. Britain is suffocating itself. Trump boasted, openly, that for every new regulation introduced in the US, more than 100 old ones are being scrapped. Permits fast-tracked, approvals accelerated, capital welcomed, not punished. Meanwhile, in Britain, businesses are buried under red tape. Energy costs are among the highest in the developed world. Taxation punishes productivity, and long-term planning is impossible because policy changes with every press release. Trump didn't have to insult Britain. The numbers did it for him. Factories being built across America, steel plants reopening, manufacturing returning at scale, trade deficits collapsing, energy production surging, and then came the line that should have sent shockwaves through Downing Street. When the United States goes up, you follow. That's not partnership. That's hierarchy. America is repositioning itself as the industrial, energy, and economic core of the West. Everyone else, optional. And here's the truly devastating part for Keir Starmer. Trump didn't say Britain is failing because of lack of resources. He said Britain is failing by choice. Sitting on the North Sea, sitting on centuries of energy, sitting on skilled labour and infrastructure, but choosing not to use it. Choosing windmills over reliability, choosing ideology over output, choosing appearances over results. And Trump made one thing very clear. America will not follow Europe down that road. In fact, it's doing the opposite, using tariffs, using energy independence, using tax incentives, using hard power economics, pulling companies, talent and investment away from places like the UK. This is why Starmer has no real response, because to argue with Trump, he'd have to admit Britain's model is broken, and to fix it, he'd have to abandon the very ideology that put him in power. So instead, the UK leadership talks about marginal bill reductions, while the US talks about dominance, talks about transition, while the US talks about production, talks about virtue, while the US talks about leverage. Trump wasn't grilling Starmer personally. He was exposing a reality Britain can't escape anymore. The global order is shifting. Energy is power, industry is power, and countries that refuse to compete will be managed, sidelined, or ignored. By now, the picture is impossible to ignore. This was never just about Trump giving a speech. It was never just about energy numbers. And it certainly wasn't just about Keir Starmer being embarrassed on the world stage. This was a warning. Trump's message, whether people like him or not, is brutally consistent. Power belongs to those who produce. Security belongs to those who control energy. Influence belongs to those who make the rules. And Britain, under Starmer, is doing none of the above. While the UK argues over optics, Trump is reshaping reality. Energy independence, manufacturing dominance, tariffs as leverage, regulation slashed, borders hardened, trade rewritten. This is not chaos. It's economic warfare, and America is playing to win. Now look at Britain's position. High energy prices, falling output, regulation everywhere, net zero deadlines strangling industry, and a government that talks about £150 savings while costs explode by thousands. Trump didn't call Britain weak. He didn't need to. He simply showed what strength looks like, and let the contrast do the damage. And this is where it becomes truly uncomfortable. For decades, Britain assumed it mattered because of history, because of language, because of the special relationship. But Trump doesn't care about nostalgia, he cares about value. If you don't produce, if you don't defend your own energy, if you don't grow, you become irrelevant. Not an ally, a dependency. And that's why Greenland matters. That's why energy matters. That's why tariffs matter. That's why Starmer looked completely unprepared. Because Trump's America isn't asking permission anymore. It's choosing partners and cutting loose the rest. Britain now faces a stark choice. Rebuild energy, rebuild industry, rebuild sovereignty, or accept a future where decisions are made elsewhere, and Britain is simply expected to comply. Trump didn't attack Starmer, he outgrew him. And that may be the most dangerous moment in modern British politics. Because when power shifts quietly, by the time you notice it, it's already too late. If you want to understand what's really happening behind the headlines, like this video, share it, and subscribe, because the next phase of this story will decide Britain's future. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Is Trump exposing hard truths or accelerating Britain's decline? The conversation starts now.